What I'm going to do in this video is build a model of loanable funds and then show how that can be transformed to a model of endogenous money and what the differences are. And the model of loanable funds I'm working from comes from Paul Krugman's work. This is his book, End of Suppression Now. And when he's talking about the level of debt, his argument here is that the level of debt itself, the aggregate level, doesn't matter. It's the distribution that counts. And his logic starts by saying that if you ignore the foreign component and look at the world as a whole, the overall level of debt makes no difference to net worth because one person's liability is another person's asset. And it says borrowing down here is not a case of the economy borrowing more money. It's rather a case of less patient people borrowing from more patient people. So I'm going to build a model that has that precisely that effect, but has the banks in it because I have money in this system and the banks know they are just going to be passive lenders of more money. By the way, this is the same type of argument that Krugman uses with Egerton in his paper in the Quarterly Journal of Economics, where he says that they set out a model of impatient agents borrowing from patient agents but are subject to a debt limit, and that's what then causes the crisis. So let's look at this. And he actually has in most of his models, and certainly a blog post, he has the patient agent simple consuming. I'm going to have both the patient agent and the impatient agent being capitalists who own firms, hire workers, produce output, which I leave in the background, and then we then have a circulation economy, and I want to compare that to the endogenous money vision. So first of all, I bring down a godly table, right-click and choose open the table. I then get my accounting view of the system, and the bank is going to play no active role here, but it's simply a passive place where the reserves are stored. So if I type reserves here, I create an account called reserve, which is an asset of the bank. And let's just say that this starts with $100 in there, or 100 million, whatever, which has been deposited, as we'll see in a moment, by the patient agent. The program warns me my row sum is now currently 100. It needs to be 0 for accounting purposes. And then when I show a liability, which in this case the first liability is going to be the account of the patient agent, I then have to show that as a negative number. And I'm going to say it's a minus 90, because I'm going to say that there's a starting initial condition where the patient agent has pardon me, hit the delete key by accident, a bit too fast there. Back we go again. Liability, patient agent, and now hit the plus key properly, and have another liability to make this minus 90 again, and make this the impatient agent, to whom the patient agent has already lent $10, so the row sum is now 0. And then I include two more accounts in the system, one for workers who are going to be paid wages and consume out of those wages, and then another one for the net worth of the bank, which is going to be 0, of course, in this model, but it'll come in handy later. So there's my overall statements, and now what I need to have is to show lending money, and presume there's a flow of money going from patient to impatient, and I show the source as a positive amount. The row sum is now positive and then a negative, and the sink or the destination as a negative. Now that's showing plus and minus. If you prefer to see the way accountants see these things as debit and credit, then you come across to the window here and choose debit and credit, and when you go back and take a look at it, you'll see the way accountants expect to see it. I find that confusing. I'm sure a lot of accounting students do too when they first get into it. I didn't do accounting at university. I'm paying the price now, having learned as I bring accounting concepts into economics. But I prefer to lend the plus and minus. I think it's easier to follow. Okay, the basic idea is because your liabilities are shown as negatives, and your equity as well, your assets are shown as positives, whether you're talking about a bank or the other agents. There's lending money, of course, then you have to pay the interest. So that's going to be a transfer of INT, I'll call it. We're going to ignore deposit interest in this case for obvious reasons, but also when I've expanded to being endogenous money, again just for simplicity's sake. There's payment of interest, and then of course you would ultimately repay the loans. So we now have another flow called repay, or going from the impatient agent to the impatient. There's a minus shown in the patient agent's column. Now once that happens, both these people are set of capitalists. They're going to be hiring workers. So first of all, we're going to have the patient hiring workers, which means they've got to pay wages, not call that wages underscore P for patient, which then turns up in the accounts of workers as minus wages P. Ditto for the impatient agent, the first line of the label, just to let you know what's going on. I could be more detailed, but it's not really necessary. So wages underscore I paid out of the impatient agent and going into the workers' accounts. And then I'm going to have consumption, which will be consumption coming from, first of all, the impatient agent consuming the output of the patient agent's factories. So I'm going to have CONS underscore I here for consumption by the impatient agent, which then becomes minus consumption underscore I there. Notice, by the way, all these are being built down the bottom in the icon, as are the flows coming in through here and the accounts being defined down here. You'll also see the formatting, including lowercase and so on, or subscripts. Okay, consumption by the impatient agent. Now we add consumption by the patient agent of what the impatient agent produces. So that's a positive here and a negative there. And then you've got to put workers and bankers in the act. So get more rows, just for the heck of it, just to have the label there. So that's going to be, and I've got to have two, I've got to be giving two locations here. Consumption by workers from the patient agent, WP, and then we need to have a capacity to copy rows, which we don't yet have. I'll do that later. We'll do that later. There's a development. They have consumption by the workers of what the impatient agent produces. By the way, if I made an error in any of these, and I have made an error here, let's just I'm going to make that a minus. So I'm going to click in the box and hold the control key down. I can then move within that one window and type my minus, so I make that correct. And if I happen to put that in the wrong window, I can drag it to where it's supposed to be. If I put it in the right location, well, let's say I actually meant it to be over here, then I can just click and drag. Hold the mouse down and drag, and back it goes again. When you see that, there we go, that icon, it means swap from one row to another, and you can put them in different columns as well. So there's consumption by workers. Now we need consumption by bankers, just to save time for cons bankers, and they're going to consume from base agents. But of course they won't be doing any consumption here because they won't have any income. But that will happen later. Consumption by bankers from the patient agent. And consumption by bankers from the impatient agent. The curly bracket and the underscore, by the way, are latex commands for formatting. We use latex throughout the program, so if you want to look and see how to do things like, for example, like add Greek cases there, it's just a case of following latex command. Pardon me, wrong spot. Okay, so from over here, consumption by bankers from the impatient agent. Okay, now that is effectively a model of, whoops, and what have I done wrong? I've missed off a bracket there. Okay, so that's again the advantage of the row sum, just telling you whether you've got everything balanced. Okay, that's correct now. So I'm going to save that. As Loanable Funds. And now I'm going to be able to show just in terms of the mathematical logic what's going on here. Let's just first of all, let's fill this out a bit, because I've got that's seeing the whole thing from the point of view of the bankers. And let's just make that obvious that I mean the bankers up here, so I'll call this the bank balance sheet. That is just a label. We don't actually make any use of that. We will at later stages in developing the program. Now I'm going to bring in another one down. And just for labeling cases, I'm going to say this is actually going to see how the system looks from the point of view of the patient's point of view. So I'm going to click on asset here. Now once I do that, notice the drop down arrow here. That lets me say what asset you're talking about that currently hasn't been allocated to any agent in the system. So this is the patient agent. I want the patient. And notice initial conditions already filled in. And if I then click any button here, instantly it fills in what's already been typed in elsewhere in the system. And it's letting me know that I've got to make entries here, otherwise I won't have a balanced system. So I now have to say, well, does the patient agent have any liabilities in this model at the moment? No. But he does have equity. So we now have to look at the net worth of the patient agent. And that net worth is actually 100 because I've left out an asset. Let's just whack the asset in here in a moment. Got to make it minus, of course, minus 100. I'll correct that after a moment once I've got this fixed up. So what's actually happening? A consumption is coming in from the impatient agent, which is improving the net worth of the agent. Consumption is going out, which is reducing the net worth of the patient agent. And then all these come in. I'll just quickly type those in. Interest is going to net worth, and the next three are the, of course, the interesting ones. Where do I put them? I'm not affecting the net worth of the agent, they're affecting the assets. So I need another asset here, which I'm going to call loans. And we therefore have to have, there's the asset increases by the lending, falls because of the repayment, and this belongs over in the equity column, because you're paying out wages to hire workers. So that's all now balanced. Of course, the one thing I've got to add is that the loan is actually, the initial loan starts at 10. And it's supposed to be minus 90 over here. I typed the wrong number in. Okay, so again, the program is checking. Okay, what have I done? Sorry, 10 positive assets. Okay, so the loan is a positive asset. And I've actually, by clicking now, I've managed to move something around there. So what have I done? I've inserted an extra row. Okay, looks like I've somehow deleted something there. It might be helpful to actually use a better label on the other side. So this is reducing the net worth. Okay. So that's now correct. And what have I got wrong? That's loans. Net worth of 90 should be 100, which I had right the first time. Okay. There we go. Everything's correct for the patient agent. I'll save the file at that stage. And now let's bring down one more for the impatient agent. Choose the asset class to be assets here. And once I've done that, then I get, what are my choices? I'll get impatient or workers. I've already allocated patient, obviously. Initial conditions are applied, and once I click on another column or row, all the things which are missing are filled in. So there's obviously another liability for this agent because they owe money to the patient agent, and this is going to be, what are the choices for liabilities? Loans. Notice lend and repay are now balanced for us straight away. So now I have to fill out the other columns here, which I'll do quickly, hopefully without making any more errors. But of course the program will find out if I do. Clearly I've deleted that row there by accident. I'll fix it up later. Or that label. And of course it's not going to liabilities. Another mistake, but I've fixed it up pretty. What I want here is the net worth of the impatient agent. Pardon me, double I. Okay, so that is actually not going to there. It's going across to net worth. Consumption coming in, consumption going out, consumption coming in, consumption by bankers coming in. Consumption by workers coming in, interest payments going out. And wages going out. Broken a reactor. Okay, having done all that, save that. Now let's just take a look at those three tables. Move them around a bit. That's the bank's balance sheet. Patient and impatient. I hope I can get them all on the one screen here. Pardon me. Getting nice clicks when you've got a single pixel range is rather annoying. Okay, that shows the overall financial system of that model. Completely balanced. I haven't put any values in there. I don't intend doing that right away. What I want to do now is to show you the equations that the program generates. And they will turn up in the paper I'm writing, which is going up on my Business Spectator blog and Debt Deflation blog. So I'll just quickly bring those up. If you save the equation, they're saved in what's called TEC format. For those of you who know in the mathematics processing, that's of course the leading way to describe equations or technical documents. So if I now go across to that subdirectory and load it into my TEC word processor, and let's just minimize this so this here, then those are the equations of the system. No definitions given up for the flows at the moment, but those are all the dynamics of each of those accounts. And I'll put that into the paper and talk about this in the next model. And I'll save this right now and then go and show you how this can be modified straight away into a model of endogenous money from a model of loanable funds. Well, having defined loanable funds, how do I convert them to a model of endogenous money? Let's first of all start with the bank balance sheet, because what we're arguing here is that it's actually the bank that's getting the loan, making the loans, not the patient agent to the impatient agent. So let's go across to the patient agent and delete one column. If they don't actually have the loans there, they get rid of that. Come over here and say there's actually, what in fact is the case is there's an asset called loans. And bang. Now transferred across to being something that happens with the bank rather than the patient agent to impatient agent. And let's see, I've got one too many len turning up there. I've got to just simply delete the len there and delete the repay there. So that particular table is correct. Let's take a look across at what's happening over here with the patient agent. That is now all correct. What about the impatient agent? Okay, well the impatient agent, that looks like I've got everything correct there. That's all it took. So the simple party interest payments, well they don't go to the patient agent, they go to the net worth of the bank. There we go. Let's now check all the tables. So that row completely balances, all the tables completely balanced. This one I've now got to get rid of interest payments to the patient agent, which don't actually happen. So that's correct. And about the impatient agent, still correct. Okay, we have now gone from loanable funds to endogenous money. And let's take a look at the equations. I'll just save that as endogenous money. Let's look at the equations involved. Okay, now I won't talk about them here in great detail. I'll talk about that more in the blog, in the post on my blog and Business Spectator. But that's all it takes. So what sort of difference does that make to the way you see the world work? I'll explain that in the blog. Watching the movie myself, I saw one little error I haven't quite fixed up, and that is that by redefining the loans to be from the bank rather than from the patient to the impatient agent, I had 110 in assets and only 100 in reserves. So they actually, because this is the deposit of the patient agent, is not just depositing money rather than lending it, that should be 90. and that will now give me a row sum, of 0. I come across the impatient agent, that's 0. As the initial conditions, okay, I've got minus 10 turning up there, or minus 100. The patient agent I have having an asset, but I forgot to put in a liability. And the liability, of course, is the loans. Videos, and why they're not turning up. Let's see. Because I'm working with the patient agent, pardon me. Get rid of that. Impatient agent, thank you. Loans, okay, patient agent, I've got to change that from being net worth of 100 to net worth of 90 and make the change at that point. So now, that now gives me a correct statement there, and correct statement there.